Hello, everyone. Very happy to have with us an energy and climate change expert. Right now, we have with us Divya Jain. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Divya.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to be here on this platform and share my journey with all of your audience for this YouTube platform. So let me just introducing myself. So I am Divya. I'm an energy economist by profession, and I'm currently working as a research associate at CSEP, which is Center for Social and Economic Progress. It's a public policy think tank based in Delhi. And prior to this, I have completed my doctoral studies from TERI School of Advanced Studies, which is in Vasant Kunj, New Delhi. So let me just first give you an idea of what I'm currently working as a part of my current organization. So as we all know that in the RE space, Indian states are characterized by different with the different geographies, and that's how determines their RE like how much RE they can grow. Right. So, for
So,
example,
RE means
Rajasthan.
renewable energy, right?
Yeah. Let me just simplify. Yeah,
Yeah.
renewable energy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, renewable energies, like for example, if we talk about solar, then Rajasthan is very much rich in solar. Then if we go to Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, they're rich in wind. And there are other states as well, like Karnataka and Telangana and etc., which are also RE rich. But primarily the focus has been that India needs to grow its RE to meet its ambitious target for 2030, which is over 20 gigawatts if we just include solar and wind. Now, what primarily the challenge over here is that if you look at demand side aspect of these states, and if you look at the RE capacity targets, like for the whole of India, which have not been like integrated for each state, but if we look at whole of India, then all these states are different in the sense of the demand that they have demand at different times during the day. Like, for example, a particular state might witness peak during evening, other state might witness peak during afternoon. And the challenge is to actually match it with the RE, like RE supply. Solar, as we know, is just available during afternoon hours, and wind is just available during evening hours. So then this becomes a challenge where we have to match both demand and supply, because solar and wind are actually not available 24 hours during the day. There's just one is actually complementing the other. So when one is available, other is not available, and solar actually drops to zero during the night time. And that is when a lot of states actually witness like peaking of the demand. So this is what as a part of my recent work I'm trying to do. So we are trying to actually map the electricity demand and RE supply within these RE rich states in India, and using quantitative techniques. So basically, if we try to increase the RE capacity in one state, then this has to match with the time of the demand which is peaking in that state. Otherwise, we'll just have overcapacity in that state. So this is what we're trying to do as a part of a statistical analysis. So this is just a glimpse of what I do at CSEP. And another part is also related to international comparison of countries and how they're actually how are the developed countries decarbonizing just by means of switching from one fossil fuel to another rather than moving to an RE source. And like the developing countries, which primarily includes like major countries such as India and China, they're actually growing RE at a much faster rate. So that's what we are trying to look at in a different part of work as a part of CSEP. So that was just about what I do at CSEP. Now, let me just first start by giving a glimpse of what has been my professional journey till now, and how did I actually so at the beginning of my career, I was actually an economics graduate, which actually culminated from my interest in the economics subject during my school days. And then I decided to pursue, then I decided to pursue economics honors, and then finally switched to masters in economics. Now, for masters in economics, I was just given So they were like multiple specializations in economics, which I was trying to go for during my master's, uh, but masters in environmental economics is what I opted for. And this was not the first choice, which this was not my first choice, because there were not many universities during that time which were actually offering environmental economics. So I was just not very sure of how it will actually take too much towards my career path. But then I eventually finally pursued it. And during those 2 years of my master's program, I was actually taught a lot of subjects related to environmental economics. Now, people who might not very much know about what environmental economics is all about. So as we know, economics is all about like optimal allocation of scarce resources. And then that's what relates to environment, that how this impacts the environment and how we're actually trying to manage the scarce resources, and how this has an impact on the total environment, for example, reducing environmental pollution, etc. So then like the various subjects which were taught during my environmental economics program, what caught my major attention was a subject of energy economics. And it was really intriguing to actually know about what energy economics is all about, where we actually try to just study the supply and demand of energy and its impact on environment. So it's not just we try to link economics and environment, but now there is an energy aspect which is involved into it. And that's how we look into that, we look into the impact of energy usage or its supply on the environment. Now, this was what actually like led me to pursue energy economics. And then during my master's in the field of energy economics, I also did thesis. Master's thesis was also on the subject of energy economics. And that was when I actually delved much deeper into the subject and practicality of how everything works in the economy and how the power sector works. Now, post that, I actually did a small, this was a research assistantship in IIM Bangalore, where my work was not actually related to energy economics, but in general economics, where I was just involved with coding. I was actually doing data analysis and data sanitization. So that was a short stint. Post that, I always during my master's program, always had that in mind, that I want to go for research, and primarily PhD research. So I just thought of gaining an exposure during those 4 months, which were all about just applying some statistical techniques and working with data and all of that. Then there was a break of some time, and then I finally started to pursue PhD at TERI. And during that break, I actually applied to different universities and prepared research proposals, etc. So during my PhD journey, I'll just first of all talk about what my work was all about during the PhD research, and some of the key findings from it. And then I'll also tell about few tips and tricks which will be relevant to the folks who are interested in starting their PhD journey, and also those who are actually in the middle of it.
Sure.
Yeah. So let me just first start with, I think I need to share my screen.
Okay, hang on. I'll put you on pause for a minute. Okay, we are all set to see Divya's analysis. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So let me just first talk about how the two sectors are interlinked, and this was what my major focus was during my PhD. So energy sector and climate, both of them are closely interlinked. Although, if we talk about other sectors other than the power sector, then agriculture is also very much linked to climate change. But my focus over here was energy sector and its linkage with climate change. Now, climate change is very much different from climate variability. Climate change is actually where we look at long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. spanning over decades. That's what we call climate change. But climate variability refers to the periodic shifts in climate parameters, where we look at monthly shifts, seasonal shifts, and how does that differ from its average value. So what major researchers had been doing till the time when I actually reviewed a lot of literature was that they tried to look at how energy sector is actually contributing towards climate change. So that is how we can understand it in a way where a lot of fossil fuels are burned in the power sector, as we know, like from coal, oil, and gas. And that has been a major contributor towards the greenhouse gas emissions that actually results in climate change. Now, this was what major researchers had focused on. But then what I tried to do during my research was I tried to look at the opposite thing, where it's like how impacts of climate variability are there on the energy sector, which is the power sector. Now, just trying to simplify it much further, where climate variability is actually like the changes in temperature, precipitation, humidity, wind speed, and all of these climate variables are actually used as a proxy for climate variability and how that impacts the energy sector. Now, that was what I looked at upon during my PhD research. Now, if you look at India in specific, then I mean, okay, just not about India, but in general, if you just look at how climate actually impacts different sectors of electricity, like, for example, electricity generation, then the power distribution, infrastructure and operations, then heating and cooling energy requirements. These are all the specifics aspects of the electricity sector that are impacted due to the climate changes in the climate pattern. Now, just bifurcating how electricity generation is actually impacted due to the climate variability. So electricity generation in the sense of like, if you know, solar, then wind, then hydro, all of these are impacted due to, like, solar gets impacted with the solar radiation, then wind is impacted by wind speed, etc., and all of this. Then if you look at power distribution infrastructure and operations, this is what was one of the focus of my PhD research, where I tried to look at climate changes in the sense of the extreme weather events which are happening over the past few years in India, and how that impacts the power distribution infrastructure and operation. That is what I tried to do. One part of the research was that. Then second part was where I tried to look at the consumption, like how climate variability is actually impacting the electricity consumption in few states of India, which are actually very much different in the sense of their climate. So if you just look at the map, which is there, now it actually shows that India is very much different in the sense of the climate which different states experience. So the red area, which is actually marked by a hot and dry climate zone, and this area is actually this region is actually where we experience dry and unpleasant weather during the summer season. Now, if you look at the lighter orange, yellow part or creamish part, then this actually shows the warm and humid. This actually shows the composite climate zone, where we experience extreme summers as well as extreme winters. Now, these are the states, like, for example, if you look at Delhi, then that is where we actually experience that kind of a weather, or the neighboring states as well, like Uttar Pradesh, then Punjab, and all of these states. Then moving to the down south, which is the warm and humid climate zone, we know that all of these states actually are very humid, and they experience almost more than 75% of the humidity during the year. So I just want to actually give a light on how different states are different in the sense of their climate, and how for example, their electricity consumption in the residential sector, which is a sector which is very much sensitive to the climate change, is actually impacted. So since these states are different in the sense of their climate, in the sense of how climate experiences, that is why their electricity consumption also differs. So that was the major aspect of the thesis. where I tried to characterize the electricity consumption and its sensitivity towards climate, the changes in climate, like temperature, precipitation, humidity, etc. And all of these states, they do not, like in India, we know that states do not there's not much of heating demand in all these states. There's much more of cooling demand which these states experience. So that is what actually drives to see that how these states are actually how the cooling demand in these states actually varies when there is a change in temperature, humidity, etc. during different seasons. And the seasons actually do vary during the year. So if you look at the graph which is there, now this is just the relationship between temperature and electricity demand. So if we look at if we start with the lower bound of the axis, then we see that at lower bounds of temperature, there is high electricity demand. Now, this is why this is so. This is because of the higher heating demand at lower temperature. Now, if we just move to the right side of the axis, then we see that the cooling demand actually increases when there is an increase in temperature. Now, this is very simple to understand, but the main point is that in India, only the right-hand side of the curve is very much prevalent because we experience much of cooling demand. But actually to statistically quantify that how much each state is, how this curve is actually bent towards the right, whether it's a flat one or it's actually a steeper one, is actually important to study. So this is what I studied and looked at the relationship between temperature and electricity demand. And we actually looked at 6 states in total, comprising of hot and dry climate zone, warm and humid, and composite climate zone. And these are the 3 climate zones which are actually comprising 80% of the population within India. So that's what I looked at. Now,
hang on, Divya. I
yeah.
just want to come in for a minute here.
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much for bringing this research forward, because it's a two-way relationship that is not very clear to everybody. We just think we need to do solar and wind, but if the climate changes, the demand changes, and we need to figure that out. Okay. The other point I want to make is that when we look at what we call as all India data, this is just a statistical aggregate. It does not reflect ground reality. The ground reality varies by state by state. We are such a large and diverse country, whether it's in terms of the weather, climate, demand, industrialization, agriculture, and so on, that if you want to really understand what's happening, you have to look at it state by state. I think that's a very important point. It resonates with a lot of my statements for the last 5 or 6 years, that all India data is just a statistical aggregate. And it has no reflection on the ground anywhere. It has no reflection. You cannot just say, okay, I mean, you can say it for the sake of international comparisons or for the sake of having a simple number. But if you are at all interested in the analysis, then you have to break it up, if not state by state, as you have done by region, right? So I think that's just a general point for every that I want to make, that and there's an implicit point also here that the policies have to be not just uniform national policies, because they have to figure out, for example, if the demand is rising in some state, then they need to have policies for that. And if the demand is going elsewhere in another, supply is going. So each state or each region may need its own set of policies. Right. So I think there you have brought that out very clearly. And it just is what I have been saying for not just for this, but for many things for the last 5 or 6 years. That we cannot just have any more a simple explanation of reality by looking at the statistical average all India. So thank you, Divya. I'm sorry to talk so much, but it resonated with me a lot, and I'm glad that you've done this work. People should be aware that it's a two-way relationship in the long run. Okay, and we are if the climate changes, this actually changes the way how we produce and distribute electricity.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, good. So
Yeah.
thank you. Let's continue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, like what Professor Subodh said, so we all know that in the future, cooling demand is actually expected to rise almost 10x. That's what like the Indian Cooling Action Plan says. So that is why it's very much important to look at how each state is actually characterized and how climate is actually impacting its consumption, primarily the energy use in that particular state. Then if we go one step further, then we can see that various sectors are very much different. And residential sector is where like the buildings, like the households where we live, are actually very much responsive to the changes in all these climate variables. Specifically like temperature, if we talk about, they might not be very much very much directly impacted by the other factors, but temperature is what actually influences the energy use in a household. So this was a second layer which I tried to look at. I didn't look at how each sector is climate sensitive. We know agriculture and residential sector is climate sensitive. Although it's like the studies, they remain, they actually do not focus on that aspect. But I tried to link it with how different states have different heterogeneous climate, and how there are different factors, like for example, behavioral factors, demographic factors, and household factors within a household. How do these factors impact the residential electricity consumption? And this was done for like out of those 6 states, for which I actually quantified the cooling electricity consumption and its sensitivity towards climate. Out of those 6 states, I actually did it for 4 states and different districts, because we know that, for example, Maharashtra, like one of the cities in Maharashtra actually experiences a different climate from the other city. Like the weather patterns are actually different. Right. So that is what we did in the sense of looking at district-wise sensitivity of residential sector in all. The electricity consumption sensitivity, and which are the factors which are actually driving that residential electricity consumption. Okay. So let me just now talk about the major findings which were there. This is just a broad, I just gave you a broad idea of what the research was all about. Now, moving into the specific findings, I won't like go into the statistics of what was what was the statistics and how these states were different. I'll just give a overview of what these findings have to say. So first of all, as I was mentioning earlier, that the temperature and electricity consumption is actually like the linkage is actually non-linear to the differing heating and cooling energy requirements. So that is what we could actually quantify it for the Indian states, that this non-linear pattern does exist, and we could actually like find a threshold limit. Now the threshold limit is actually is actually the base temperature at which there won't be no heating as well as no cooling demand. So right. This is what we could find out for all these states. Yeah. Now, what we
could you give us a number on that? Could you give us? Is it like 15 Celsius or 20 Celsius? Where is it?
So it was different for each state. I had looked at into 6 states now, which are mentioned below. The Uttar Pradesh, Punjab. Sorry, it's written by mistake. Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, then Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, and Madhya Pradesh. Now, all these states had different threshold temperature. Like, for example, one of the states actually experienced 24 degrees Celsius temperature as a threshold. Like, that is what actually came out from the study. Other state was actually like, so basically for all these states, the threshold temperature was within the range of 21 to 24 degrees Celsius.
Right.
But it was actually like the range was this, but it was different for each state. That is what we could find out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So this has a major implication where the basically the air conditioning, like the manufacturing companies can actually use this threshold temperature, and then they can actually this can actually influence their sale. And secondly, what we could actually see is that these Indian states which are characterized by the climate variability, do not have a same nonlinear relations. I mean, that was the major motivation behind this research, that they do not have same nonlinear relationship due to their different seasonal patterns which they experience during the year. And what we could actually see is that within one climate zone, two states, although they experience same kind of a weather during the year. Like, for example, composite climate zone does experience extreme summers as well as extreme winters. But then also their magnitude of cooling demand was very different. That was a major finding of this research. And this was primarily like indirectly influenced. This is indirectly influenced by the higher penetration of space cooling device. For example, if we just look at Uttar Pradesh and Punjab, these two states have their very their per capita income is very much different. That is why that can be one of the reasons that their cooling electricity consumption or cooling demand was very much different. And like, for example, UP has a lower per capita income. UP has a lower per capita income than Punjab. That's why their cooling demand was actually different. And we could see that through the non-linear relationship. And then we are yet to actually quantify other factors like technological progress and energy use efficiency in these states, which could have influenced their cooling demand. So this was one of the findings. Then secondly, other than temperature, which is actually seen by a lot of researchers, that is the one which does impact electricity demand. We could go into the second layer where we could find that humidity and cooling demand are also actually witnessing a nonlinear relationship. Now, this is due to the indirect impact of temperature. We know that temperature is a predominant factor, but relative humidity and cooling demand was actually like the relationship was also nonlinear. Then third, we could also look at how wind speed is actually impacting electricity demand in all these states, and it's actually very much like, I mean, surprising to see that in the state of Maharashtra, which was a part of hot and humid climate zone, we couldn't find that temperature is impacting their cooling demand. It was actually wind speed which is directly impacting their cooling demand. That was a different kind of a finding which we could see in all these 6 states, out of all these 6 states. And so this was all about the average electricity demand in all these states and how does that differ due to the climate variability or climate patterns. Then second layer was looking at peak demand in specific. Now, we tried to look at how minimum and maximum temperature during the day impacts peak demand in, how does that impact peak demand in all these 6 states. So we could find that rather than maximum temperature, which is actually known to impact peak demand, and that will actually influence peak demand in the near future in all these states, minimum temperature increase has a much higher impact on peak demand. That is what we could find out from our study. Now, one of the reasons for this can be like the minimum temperature actually increases during the evening time period, and that coincides with the increase in peak demand, which is witnessed by by all these states, which is like the demand is also peaking in the evening. So that is why both are coinciding, and that's how minimum temperature increase is impacting peak demand. Then lastly, we could also see that peak demand, like the increases in peak demand has been witnessed during all the 6 months starting from July till October. And this was primarily due to the sectoral changes as well as the seasonal factors which these states could experience. And we quantified this using a statistical technique. This was a generalized Pareto distribution model, and the extreme value models. I mean, I will not go into technicality of what these models are all about, but we used these models to actually come out with this finding. And lastly, we could also see that yearly peaks in demand are coinciding with the warmest years in terms of temperature rise. And this was also quantified. So 2015, 16, and 18, these were the years which were the warmest in the sense of the temperature rise. So this was coinciding with the peaks in demand for all these states. So I just gave you an overview of what my findings were about. I mean, few of the research aspects are still yet to be published. So I'll just confine myself to sharing these findings. And I mean, if at all somebody wants to actually go through the analysis in detail and what this research was all about, you can just look at the references which are mentioned in the slides.
Okay. All right. I just want to add here one fact that you didn't bring out because the experts know it, but I thought maybe I should add it because non-experts don't know it. The electricity business is like unique. And transportation also, because there is no storage yet. There are no stocks. So you have to meet the demand as and when it comes. This is a huge problem. We are working on storage now. You can't store, it's a huge problem for transit also, because you can't store bus trips. If there are 25 people in the line, you have to have 25 seats in the bus, otherwise somebody will miss the bus, right? Electricity too, you have to know when the electricity is needed, and you have to have enough capacity to meet just that demand. You cannot say, okay, I've stored food grains from 6 years, so if the crop is bad, I can supply you from my stock. There is no stock so far, meaningful. But the next frontier in energy economics, and especially in India and other countries, is to find a way to store the energy in a cost-effective way. So you have solar throughout the day, you don't need it, you need it at night, need it in the evening. You have to find a way to store it. But till you find a way to store it, you are really in trouble, because suddenly there is a temperature rise and people want electricity. You have to have it available somewhere to meet the demand. So electricity and bus trips, etc., they are subject to so many variables, and what ends up is that the planners put a reserve. So they say, okay, what's my peak going to be? And they try to plan that you have 110% available to meet it. And most of the time, then your extra capacity is just sitting idle. Right? Because you don't need it, but you need it in those 2 or 3 hours. And if you don't say it, people say, oh, my power gets cut when I need it the most. Right? So it's a huge problem that, people say, oh, it's hot and now I need the electricity. When everybody needs it, you don't have enough. And then you say, well, you cut it when I needed it. What's the point of this electricity supply? So especially with the solar and wind, as you noted, which are variable, you have a serious, unique difficulty that you cannot meet it from a stock. Okay, thank you, Divya. I just thought, people don't know this. You and I know it, so I thought it's worth talking about. Anything else you want to add here?
Sure. So just want to talk about a few things, like few of the challenges which I actually conquered during my PhD journey, and maybe few of your audience, like who are actually wanting to go for a PhD research or who are in the middle of it, can maybe, like, it will be a help to some of them.
Sure.
So let me just share it with you. So firstly, it's very, very much important. Like I remember when I started with my PhD research, I did go very, very much deeper into the research idea of what I was trying to what I was planning to explore during my journey. But then it's actually important for researchers who are trying to venture into it, that you just need to like have a broader understanding of the research idea. Maybe you can go through the internet sources which are just available. You cannot like just rely on them completely, but to get a broader understanding of your research idea which is there in your mind, you can just go through some sources like Wikipedia, etc., and just gain a broader understanding, and then go into the specific academic literature and plug out the research gaps, and then move into your research questions. So this is what will help you in future, and you will have a broader, like you will have a deeper understanding of your research idea. Now, secondly, what the main problem was, like during my my PhD research, we had this 6 months thing where our research was actually like where we used to present our research in front of our professors. So that is what that was a driving factor for us. But then few of the universities don't have that 6 months deadline. So maybe a lot of researchers can set deadlines for themselves, especially for shorter term as well as for long term. For example, for the next 3 years, what are you actually planning to what are you actually planning to do as a part of of your research? Are you actually trying to move ahead with the research questions at first, and then trying to look at the data gathering, and then you are actually moving to data analysis, or maybe alongside you can just do start with your other research questions and then present that work and then move to the other, like the previous research question. I mean, you can just plan accordingly and not go like haywire into like I'll just go with the PhD research. Deadlines can really help researchers. So that is the second thing which the researchers can look at. Then also I want to focus on the research tools which are available right now. I mean, they weren't that much available during the time I pursued my PhD. But then research tools like researcher.ai and Scholarcy, these are the research tools which do help, which can help researchers in getting a summary of the various academic literature which is available on the internet. I mean, I'm not very sure that whether their universities allow to use AI tools and all for the research, but then these tools can still help. Then Grammarly and Quillbot is also a platform where you can actually refine your writing and refine like the way in which you write. Your grammatical mistakes can actually can be taken care of using these two tools. And thirdly, it's there's a software which is called Mendeley, and this helps in referencing and citation of your work, which will be really important when you do draft your research and submit it to a journal. So the importance of research tools is also also gives you also helps you in actually moving ahead and moving with your research like in a much better way. And thirdly, I also want to focus on the data analysis abilities which researchers should develop, and focusing on the quantitative as well as the for example, a researcher has a set of idea in mind and wants to go for a qualitative methodology, then the data analysis abilities do differ for a person who wants to go for a quantitative research. So for a quantitative research, you can actually take up courses for learning statistical tools. I did the similar thing during my research. So I took up courses and learned those statistical tools like Stata, R, and Python. I mean, these are really helpful, and they are the major tools. Apart from Excel, these are the only tools which will actually help you to analyze big data sets. If you want to go for a secondary research, then these are the tools which can actually help you. Then lastly, you can also make use of the library resources. Like wherever you are pursuing your PhD, you can make use of the books and journals, as well as you can contact your librarian if they have access to the databases which are there on particular websites. And these websites do have like this subscription, which are like this ID, the login is just available through the university. So you can just make use of that thoroughly. Then this was just about the research skill, like how can the researchers enhance their research skill. Now, secondly, if they want to actually focus on writing and communication, which is a major layer in research. I mean, if you just do your research and you're not able to write it properly and just convey your findings to the audience in the form of papers, then it's it's not much of a use. You can just because if you want to go forward in research, writing plays a very much important role. So I just want to focus on this fact that writing can actually be improved if it is done on a regular basis. So start writing every day. Start writing maybe one paragraph or two paragraphs out of your research, and then this can actually be really a good way where you can improve your writing skill. Then You can also opt for some online courses if you want to improve your verbal communication skill, and verbally communicating your research findings during conferences and workshops will be very much helpful. And this is how you can reach out to peers and know and let them know that what you're researching about. Even if it's not at the end of your PhD research, you will eventually present your work during conferences and workshops during this journey. So this
Divya,
will
1 second.
yeah.
There's a message on the screen that your PC is running out of energy. Please plug it in. Otherwise, we are only seeing this message. Okay.
Okay.
Right. So
Shall I
continue.
put? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, I just wanted to conclude by saying that you also need to focus on networking and do present your work in various conferences and workshops. Like do that very often. Don't wait till the end of your till the end when your work actually gets completed and your all of your analysis gets completed. Just do that. For example, if you're stuck in between with one of the research questions which you're not able to tackle, you can just focus on presenting your work in some conferences and workshops, and this will really help you and give you some confidence that you're actually moving ahead, and this is a path you can go for, and you don't have to drop in between or just be lost anywhere, because we know that PhD is a journey where you have to remain self-motivated, and there will be a lot of phases where you will be anxious about that you're not going anywhere and your research papers are actually not coming out. I experienced this in a similar manner. I was just waiting for my research to get published, and in between that time, I presented my work in a lot of conferences, and that really helped me. It helped me in refining my research as well. And lastly, I would also like to tell that a lot of PhD researchers can reach out to other researchers from their domain across various platforms. Like they can actually reach out to them through ResearchGate and academia, and also reach out to them through LinkedIn. And then they can also build a stronger network, and this will help them in their future journey, future professional journey, if they want to go ahead with their research, and if they don't want to venture into anything else. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
Professor
Divya.
Yeah.
I want to ask, if you have no more slides, we can move out of this.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. But the question I want to ask you is, what's the reason to, or what are the pros and cons of think tank versus academia for you? You finished your PhD, maybe you could work for the government, maybe you could work for a private think tank, maybe you could work for a university. So do you have any sense of the pros and cons for you and how it might help others?
Yeah. So I would say that think tank and academia is very much different. I mean, just that they are linked through the bottom line, which is research. But the way in which academics, like professors, or maybe if you just start with your academic journey, then you start with an assistant professor position and all of that. So the way in which they do research is, I feel, not very much deeper into what the sector is going through. I mean, they just do research as a part of their second priority. It's not a first priority where they'll be just teaching in universities and then research. I mean, I'm not generalizing anything, but I still feel that research becomes a second option over there, where not proper focus is laid to both academics as well as research. It can be because of the time constraints, because your major, you are just there for teaching. Research, then it's maybe primarily can be driven by your personal interest, or it can be through what the university is actually telling you to do. So I feel that is what actually differentiates between working in a think tank and working in an academic space. But it's not like I'm averse to working in academia. It's not like that. I can actually opt for that in the near future, and then side by side also work in a think tank, or maybe some of the global organizations, like not just a think tank which is based in a particular setup, but just works globally.
Okay.
So I can also opt for that. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not very sure that how you feel about that, how think tank space is different from academics.
So I'm
I
asking your opinion. This is not my place to express ideas. It's just,
yeah,
what you, because I'm outdated in all these matters. So
yeah,
it's for the young people to understand
yeah,
how you chose
yeah,
what you chose. I mean, you could
yeah,
have perhaps got an academic job, but
yeah,
your
yeah,
heart was not there. Your heart was here, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, good. And this affords you a good opportunity to do your research.
yeah, yeah.
Are there any other similar organizations?
Uh, like the public policy think tanks?
Like the place where you are working for?
Yes, yes, yes. There are similar think tanks. Like if I want to name a few, then there are CEW, then there is Observer Research Foundation, then there's also ICREER. So all of but then I feel like economics. Like if I want to just focus on economics, then the place where I'm currently working is the place where economics is the major like they deal with economic issues, and then the second layer goes into that. Economics is linked to climate change, it's linked to energy, it's linked to foreign policy and all of these things. So that is what their major focus is, and we have different verticals like spanning across all these domains.
Okay.
So that is how our organization is very interdisciplinary.
Okay, wonderful. Anything else you want to add here?
Yeah, and not much. I just want to also say at the end that I missed a point to where like how academics is different from a think tank. So academics is also where you are solely like working like it's you who is responsible for your work, right? I mean, here it's also the same, but then here you also work in teams and you just exchange your ideas and work on research projects. So that's what also I feel that differentiates between the two. Academic space and think tank space.
All right. Okay. So fine. So I think we can end it here today, Divya.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you
yeah,
so much. It's such a pleasure to see a young
yeah,
person so professional about technical issues. These are not easy issues. You can't just get it in a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Even these are very detailed, nuanced technical issues. And I'm
yeah,
so glad that you have shared it with us. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
I'll be
Thank
back
you.
with another young person or an expert. And till then, bye, everybody.